Mike Winters.
And good morning. It is 8:19, and joining us in studio this morning, Chaves County Manager Bill Williams, back with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm going to try not to sniffle or cough because all of a sudden my nose started running. I guess last night's wind or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the problem with when we get the winds and everything. It blows the dust.
It was a surprise. Yesterday was a wonderful day till about noon. Wasn't paying attention in the office. And I stepped outside to go home. Where did this day come from?
Yeah. It kind of. And then I think we got a little rain last night.
I was surprised. I didn't know we got rain because when I went to sleep, apparently, and I got up this morning, went out to my truck. Looks awfully wet. Walked over to the rain gauge. I had 0.3 of an inch.
Oh, wow. So we did pretty good.
I was really shocked.
Yeah, it was like when I left or got out the house this morning, and I could tell that the roads were wet, but it still had dry patches. So I was like, well, maybe it's not. We didn't get as much rain as I thought.
The wind blew a little harder in those spots.
Yeah, probably. It tends to do that around here.
Well, the way the wind was blowing, maybe it rained in El Paso last night. It just landed here.
Yeah, that's right. It was started there. That's where the clouds were. But yeah, we'll take any moisture we get. We'll never complain about that.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, there's more sometime in our future here. But for folks that aren't familiar, Bill joins us each month, usually right after county commission meeting, and gives us the highlights from that meeting. And then if there's other things happening around the county to put on the public's radar, we use this time to do that too. So
and it's great. I mean, we try to push a lot of stuff into a short time, but we actually cover it pretty well. And we've been pretty busy since the last time we spoke.
Yeah, there's been a lot that's gone on here with the county and different things. So maybe we should dive in and just start talking about some of that.
Well, one of the things that doesn't have anything to do with the county commission meeting, and I'll come back to it, is I went to Clovis on Wednesday, and there was a Farm Bill roundtable. Senator Ben Ray Lujan called together a group of agriculturalists, and I was fortunate enough to be chosen to be on that panel, and we talked about things we'd like to see in the Farm Bill. So I hope that we have time to go into that a little bit. It was pretty interesting stuff, and I was really surrounded by a lot of really intelligent people.
Good deal. So, we'll try to make time and make sure that we don't leave that out.
I'll rush through everybody else. Everybody else, you're going to get the
you get the
minimum.
Short treatment.
Yeah. Now, first thing that happened yesterday is Michaela Cormandy was crowned the Chaves County 4-H rodeo 4-H
the queen rodeo queen.
Again.
Awesome.
And she was the queen last year.
Oh, a two-timer.
She has really stepped up her game.
Nice.
And, they have a whole series of things they have to go to, interviews, and I don't
It's
know,
a
there's 6
gauntlet
or 7 things that they have to do, and she just learns to be better and better at it.
Great. Well, good deal. So defended her crown and won for a second year.
She did. And I'd also like to shout out to Roswell Livestock. Desiree Ratton brought the crown. They always provide the crown.
The keeper of the crowns.
And crown and the belt buckle, I think. I think they get a belt buckle later.
Is the king, or I don't know how does that work with the when get a belt buckle, the king, or is the queen always is just a
well,
queen?
The queen gets the crown, and she also gets I think she gets a buckle as well. So
there's ranching and rodeoing,
But they didn't have the buckle at the time, but they did have the crown ready to go.
It is COVID world.
And, man, pretty fancy, all the glitter and everything on it. So, but congratulations to her and to her family again for working so hard to do that. It's not something you just decide, hey, I'm going to try to be the fair queen. I mean, there's a
lot of work and dedication.
A lot of work,
involved,
just like the kids that show animals. They work all year long for that few minutes of either fame or darn.
Yeah. Better luck next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, encourage all the kids that go to the fair and do that kind of thing. They do a great job.
Yeah.
And we really are glad to see them out there.
And it's glad to see the support from this year's fair too. I think that the livestock shows and everything else had great attendance for everything.
Right.
I know rain definitely helps steer people to more indoor activities, but it's great to see that a lot of eyeballs got to see a lot of fun stuff that wasn't just rides and the other reason people go to the fair.
My wife and I usually wait, and we go later in the week, and sometimes so late that all the animals are gone, and it frustrates me.
Like, dang, I wanted to see something.
But this year we went the first night, and I was really thankful we did, because then the rains hit.
Yeah, the rains hit
after
after
Monday. It
Monday.
made it a little more difficult.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, back to the county commission meeting. Something else that we did after we gave Miss Cormandy her, it wasn't a proclamation, but a certificate of appreciation, I think is what we call it. We did do a proclamation for Dick Smith. Dick Smith is retiring, at the end of October.
Okay.
Dick has been with the Chaves County Flood Commission for almost 28 years.
Wow.
27 years 7 months, 11 days, I think, when he retires.
So
if
he's
I
pushing
recall.
28 years as serving on that board.
And so we wanted to thank him for his service as the flood control superintendent within our county and all the things that he's done to assure that we're safe and fight the fights he has to fight with the Corps of Engineers and everything.
Yeah.
Gave him a plaque for his retirement. But the thing that we don't think that he knew, we told him we were going to give him a proclamation and hand him his plaque. About 3 years ago, I guess, we built a new flood control building. It's out on Brown Road. So if you're out 2nd Street, as soon as you turn the corner on Brown Road, there's a large building there on the east side. That's the new Chaves County Flood Control building. And we passed, the commissioners passed a resolution yesterday naming that building the Richard T. Smith Building.
Oh, good.
For all his years of dedication to our
That's very
community.
nice.
So that was a really neat thing. And all the people from flood control came out to see their boss get the award that he so
Nice.
much deserved.
Absolutely.
And that was a really neat thing. You know, so much of the time we do business and kind of lose the personal touch, you know, but yesterday was definitely a personal touch with Mr. Smith and Miss Cormandy both, you know, kind of see both ends of the spectrum.
Sure.
Dick Smith, I believe, is 81 years old. So, I mean, he has been
Yeah, I think he's ready
working,
to. He's earned his retirement.
and you know, he doesn't give up. He's still going to be around too. So we're looking forward to
So
continuing
he's
to see
retired in name only, for kind of.
him. Right. And replacing him is a young man by the name of Brian Hotelin.
Okay.
You tell me how to spell it, and we'll both know.
Okay.
So, but Brian is taking the reins. They hired him earlier this year as the assistant Chaves County flood control superintendent because
Okay.
they wanted to start preparing for the day when Dick
Well,
retired.
obviously-
And Dick has been, you know, giving him the fast track, and he'll be around too,
Good
also
deal.
to continue to show him what's going on.
Sure. So it's like even though there's a new person at the helm, the nothing. There should be any zero drop off on what they do or anything like that.
That's
Nothing
right. I
getting
mean,
lost
Dick
there.
has a huge amount of knowledge that he carries around just in his head, not counting everything he's written down. So it's going to take anyone a while to figure out all that stuff. But Brian has
Cool.
deep ties to the community, and he's going to do well. And we look forward to taking that ride with him. You know,
Well,
so
let's see. Maybe he'll be around till he's 81.
One of the things we did yesterday, again, like I say, sometimes our commission meetings are more cold business, you
Sure.
know, and then
Nuts and
other
bolts.
times they're more about the community and
Sure.
stuff. So
The human side.
The next thing we did was we passed a resolution for Operation. Boy, I'm having trouble talking this morning.
It's Friday.
Operation Greenlight for Veterans.
Okay.
And Operation Greenlight for Veterans is the National Association of Counties, and I assume some other organizations have asked that public buildings, and they've also asked that people do it in their homes and businesses too, light the buildings up green for returning veterans who are
Oh,
returning
nice.
home
Okay.
from active duty. I believe they said there's about 200,000 veterans return to their communities every year, and it's just a way of thanking them. You know, something came up yesterday about being a Vietnam vet. Mike Espirito was giving his monthly report to our meeting, and he mentioned that he was in the military during Vietnam time, and someone else mentioned that when the Vietnam veterans came home, of course, people reacted differently than
Absolutely.
they ever had
Yep.
to other veterans. So this Operation Greenlight is just a way for all of us in our communities to show the veterans that we appreciate their service, and we're here to help them transition back into life outside of the military.
Yeah.
Certainly they have a lot to offer, and we're very
Absolutely.
thankful for that.
Good deals.
Along with that, we're going to do a proclamation on November the 9th at lunchtime over at the Chaves County Courthouse.
Okay.
And we're trying not to horn in on everybody else's. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on during Veterans Day and
Yeah.
Veterans Day week, and we're going to light our buildings for the entire month of November so that people will
Very good.
recognize what we're doing, encourage everyone else to do it. But on the 9th, we're actually going to have a proclamation, and we're going to try to hand a copy of that proclamation out to a representative from each of the different branches of the
Oh,
military.
nice.
Just a short service,
Sure.
and letting them know Chaves County appreciates all that they do for us and have
Nice.
done for us. So
Maybe
it's
we
going
can
to be cool.
Maybe we can get someone somewhere somehow to get a hold of a bunch of green light bulbs and maybe give them out during like Veterans Parade or something.
You know, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because they are available. I think they had some at Home Depot, but I'm not sure if they have any now.
Okay.
They just had a few. but they are available, readily available.
Okay.
But maybe we can talk Excel or someone
I wonder if we
into
could work
handing
something
out
out.
green light bulbs. That'd be
Yeah,
kind of cool.
I think it would
good
be
idea.
good. Yeah, I think it would be a good
I'm gonna
little-
put that on the list.
Yeah, because
That's it. You're part of the team.
All right.
And I was looking at, you have a poster behind you, the Veterans Day Parade, Peace Through Strength, and there's a little, what do you call those?
The QR codes.
QR codes where
Yeah.
you can.
Isn't that cool?
That's really neat. I'm reading through there, and there are a lot of actions that we don't really consider to be a campaign.
Sure.
But I see the invasion of Grenada on that. And the reason I remember that one is my brother is a Marine.
Okay.
Once a Marine, always a Marine.
There is no such thing as was a Marine. You're a Marine. Yeah.
He's still a Marine, I guess, even though he hasn't been in quite some time.
Some Marines are rounder than others.
They were on their way to Grenada. Or Grenada.
Oh, he was part of that, the Grenada, he was en route to the campaign.
He was en route.
And got turned around?
No, their ship hit a log, he said in the middle. I remember him sending me a postcard. He said, believe it or not, out in the middle of the ocean, we hit a log. And it did some damage to the ship.
Okay.
And so they had to stop
And get repair and everything.
repair the ship. And by the time they got the ship repaired, the war in Grenada was over.
They missed the war.
As you recall, that was a very short.
Yeah. Well, some of those
engagement.
80s, Libya, some of those, and the different ones that they're on it. Yeah, they weren't the longest, but equally important.
Equally important, absolutely. And that's what's neat about that poster.
Yeah, the poster's
It
cool.
mentions so many things that we kind of take for granted and forgot about in a lot of those cases.
And then if you, and each of those skirmishes that we're talking about here is a QR code. You scan it, and you'll find an information page about that event and all that took place. So not only is the poster functional in telling you about the parade, it's also giving you a little bit of history. So hopefully, I don't know who all has these posters. I just know we got one, and it's a very cool poster.
Well, I can't imagine the campaign ribbons for all these. I'm finally kind of familiar with Vietnam. I recognize the colors on that. But all these other ones, shoot, there's probably so few people that were involved in some of those that you may never see the colors.
I wonder how many, at least when I was in the Air Force, that's all points for promotion, by the way. So when you get medals and campaigns, that helps you towards promotion. When I don't know if it's the same now, but when I went through, like you automatically get rank up until you're going for staff sergeant. Like it's just time in service, and as long as you don't screw up, you're going to get your rank. But once you hit staff sergeant or trying to get staff sergeant, you have to take a test, and then they also accumulate your in essence your report card. It's called something different, but your track record of your reports, combine that with deployments, service medals, things like that. So put it this way: if you happen to get your Medal of Honor, you got a really good shot of getting promoted, because nobody gets that and most people that do get awarded that, it's after they've passed.
Yeah, posthumous.
Yeah. But and so they combine all that. So I'd be curious to see, like, in the point system, like, oh, you got the Grenada cert? What's that? How many points that get you in promotion? Just curious, Probably not much now, because I'm sure there's not many people currently in the United States military that has that ribbon on their uniform.
Probably not.
And if they do, they're probably already a 4-star general or something
if they've been in there
that's
that
sitting
long,
in the Pentagon.
Working that hard, they're probably probably making rules somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So another thing that we got to do yesterday, and I say got to do, is because this kind of came as a surprise over just the last few weeks. This has kind of taken shape. We approved a resolution to accept $7.86 million of CARES funding from the local, and I hope that I remember the acronym correctly, the Local Government Tribal Consistency Assistance Fund, I think it is.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
LTACH or something. As a local government.
Okay.
This was designed for governments who are already involved with the federal government, who've endured hardship as a result of governmental policies over the last 20 years.
That's pretty much the entire state of New Mexico.
So a lot of western states, as you're aware, have a lot of public lands.
Mm-hmm.
And public lands, rather than pay taxes, they pay a payment in lieu of taxes, or a PILT payment.
Mm-hmm.
Also in the western United States, well, actually there's some in the eastern United States as well, but there are forests, U.S. forests. U.S. forests have what they call secure rural schools payments, SRS payments. And the problem with a lot of this stuff is they don't always fund PILT. And so over the years, we're expecting a revenue of so much in lieu of our taxes, which is already less than the tax would be if it were private property anyway.
Gotcha.
Then they decide not to fund it, or they fund it at a lesser amount, so we don't get it.
It's always the at the bottom of the hill there. To get funded.
It's
everybody's taken by the time it gets down to the PILT. It's like, not much left. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. We don't care that we have an agreement with you. We don't care that you're depending on this.
Yeah.
Some of the states in the West are, 90-some% federal lands. And how do
certainly
they
New Mexico is.
How do they even exist? Well, Chaves County is 67% either state or federal lands in Chaves County. So that doesn't leave a whole lot of private land for the production of food, fiber, and minerals, which is what we're supposed to do. And then with the governmental regulations, that creates even more.
Between White Sands, the White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base, that's half of the territory in southern New Mexico right there is federal government right there.
Right.
You don't realize how big Holloman Air Force Base and White Sands Missile Range, the territory of those are. They're huge on a map. It eats up a chunk of the state.
Well, and then we also have the secure rural schools. So they don't always fund SRS. Might not fund it at all. And when they don't fund it, what do they do to make them whole? They take it out of the PILT payments. Well, Chaves County doesn't have very much forest, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah. Wait a minute. You're not going to the woods this weekend in Roswell?
we cut ours all down and made boomerangs or something out of them. I don't know. But we have a very small amount of forest. So our Chaves County's SRS payment is something like $32,000 a year. Pretty insignificant. So if SRS isn't funded, it wouldn't kill us.
Right.
But
we're the exception, not the rule.
We're the exception, not the rule. They still take the full amount to fund SRS out of PILT for all these places in the West and elsewhere that have forest. So that reduces the PILT by quite a bit. Well, that does hurt us. Even though our SRS payments paid in full like $32,000, our PILT payment might be reduced by $1 million.
So you're kind of like, hey, if we're going to get one or the other, I'll take the PILT over the SRS payment right now because that's actually going to benefit us.
And so that is a real life issue that has happened in Chaves County for the life of these things.
What really needs to happen is they need to higher prioritize the PILT payments. If they're making that agreement and they have that agreement and cities, counties, and municipalities are relying upon this stuff, and it. Yes, Chaves County and we're pretty fortunate. We got some pretty smart cookies that keep us afloat. But you hear it every year of different cities or different counties where they're bankrupt and Santa Fe's got to come in and manage and you're like, really? That's the pot calling the kettle black.
Our commissioners are very cautious about, we have a revenue source coming in. We're going to get $1 million from the federal government.
Yeah.
So, well, let's not bank on that.
Yeah.
So they're very cautious and they make sure that they never overestimate.
Yeah. Now, one could make an argument, well, they should have been better with their finance. Yes, they could. But at the same time, they're promised monies that they're not getting. And you can't create a budget on promised monies and not get it.
We want to make sure that we're solid every time, and we're very fortunate that we have commissioners that think that way. So there's been a big movement over the last several years because so much of the West is public lands. And back east, there's very little public lands, and that's where many of the lawmakers...
They all live up top of each other on the East Coast there,
and they don't care anything about this, but there's been a big movement to make sure that SRS is fully funded every year, PILT is fully funded, SRS payments are made, and this is all a part of that. So a few weeks ago, we got a notice that this had been done, and we have a gentleman that works with us in Washington by the name of Bob Widener, who keeps us in the loop. He's involved in a whole lot of stuff back east in Washington and throughout the West. And he contacted me and says, looks like you're going to get $3.93 million out of this deal. And we knew he'd been working on it, but we had no idea that we were close. 3.9, well, that's great.
Yeah.
So we have to go to the Treasury Department to sign in. And we knew that there was supposed to be a payment. As soon as you sign in, you'll get your first payment within a few days. And the second payment will come. And it sounds like it's probably actually going to come in the month of January, but sometime after January 23. But it sounds like everything that I've read, it will actually come that month.
Okay.
So I log onto the Treasury site to make sure that we're ready to receive. I got my hand out.
All our our paperwork's in order and ready to go.
And I knew that there were two payments. I thought that our total was $393.93 million. But that's the first payment. The second payment is $3.93 million.
Oh, wow.
So $7,860,454
almost $8 million
or something. It's So that is really a boon.
Good.
And there are a few regulations on or restrictions on what we can spend it on, but it's not heavily restricted. But
It's got a
there-
lot of latitude. It's some strings, but not as many as one would expect.
But there are reporting requirements. And so we can hang on to this money for 5 years, 10 years.
Okay.
But in 10 years, if we use it 10 years, we have to do the reporting on it then. So we're going to have some discussions on how we're going to spend that, how we're going to put it in
Okay.
our budget. And there's a possibility we may just use it to pay general fund expenditures and then report that we used it to pay general fund expenditures, which then means that we didn't spend $8 million somewhere else and we don't have to report on that 10 years from now.
Gotcha.
It would make more sense to get the reporting requirement out of the way to make sure that we don't trip ourselves up
Sure.
at some point in the future. But I don't know. I mean,
But the commission's got to decide on
commission has to decide. The
course to
finance
take
committee,
here.
you know, they take everything into account, and there may be a reason they don't want to do that. But,
Sure.
But you know,
But this is why they have the discussions in
Right.
the committees, and then eventually to the
and they really
full
immerse
commission.
themselves. Our finance committee is no different than the Senate Finance Committee in Washington.
Well,
I mean, they learn about what they need to know
And they
about
kind of
before
got
they
to
invest it. Yeah, they have to.
because at the end of the day,
There's a lot of weight on their shoulders.
the county commissioners are making decisions really sometimes in some cases solely based off that information they're giving them. So yeah, the people in that department, they definitely dot their I's and cross their T's, and when they present that information, it's like you can take that
Right.
to the bank. Right. And that's and I imagine that there is, because of that, that's what allows the county commission to make smart decisions, because they get good information from these committees and
Right.
and things like that. So it is it is a yes, we elect the county commission, but they got to hire the right people to help them do their job right, and that's where Bill comes in, obviously. But
Well, Bill is a very small part of it. We have a wonderful county staff that all know their jobs, and I'm just kind of like the guy in the circus ring that, you know, all the people, all the acts, they're highly trained and educated and know exactly what they're going to do and exactly how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just walk around with the top hat and try to, you know, stand out front, I guess. But
hello, my baby.
we have a great staff, and I'm really proud to be able to represent
Yeah.
them.
But they got to figure out what to do next year. So
Right.
that's what they're going to do.
The thing that took the most time at yesterday's meeting, which I'm going to shrink down into a very small amount of time, we had a resolution opposing the Office of the State Engineer's plan to remove the Roswell Artesian Basin water right records, move them out of Chaves County. It's the only existing copy, the only complete record of water rights records for
So
our basin, and they want to take them to Santa Fe, digitize, and abstract all these records.
Which I understand that's probably a smart idea, to have a backup.
That's not a bad thing. And we attended a meeting at the Pecos Valley Artesian Conservancy District earlier in the month. I think it's the first week in the month. And the consensus was they're not touching our records. I mean, people came from everywhere saying, we don't want our records to leave. We don't want that to happen.
Okay.
So
I can understand that, but at the same time, I can understand we probably want a backup some way.
We do
shape,
need
or
some
form.
sort of a backup.
Yeah.
And so we created, or I created a resolution. I took it out to Pecos Valley Artesian Conservancy District to make sure that I had hit on all the points that they wanted to hit on. And they said, since the meeting, we've had a few more discussions, and we may have a couple of other options, and we're not sure what direction we want to go. And
So it's kind of back to the drawing board on that one.
well, yes and no. I mean, I took it to one of our commissioners who was advising me on this particular resolution, and that's kind of the way it works. Most resolutions have kind of a sponsor behind them. Not that all the commissioners may not be a part of it in some way, but because we don't want a quorum or anything, one or two might say, "Hey, I want you to take a look at doing this and see if we can present this at the next meeting." Or
Gotcha.
you know, I don't just pick stuff out of the air, and people don't just say, "Hey, Bill, I want you to do this." You know, it has to go through a process to
Sure.
get there. So I took it to the commissioner, and I said, "Do we pull it? Do we wait till they decide?" He said, "No, because there was such a group from the community. Let's go ahead and present that publicly, and then we can debate it, and we can decide what needs to be done." So we had Aaron Ballack and some people from PVACD came to our meeting. Greg Alpers came with Aaron.
Okay.
And he got up and spoke as to the pros and the cons of moving the records, what the potential could be for losing them, what the potential would be for getting them back at the end of the process. And they have a work group together that's working with the Office of State Engineer to decide what they're willing to do and make sure that they understand our point of view. So we made all this very public because it's a very public thing.
Sure.
Water rights are very important to us.
What's the
here in
joke
Pecos
about
Valley.
whiskeys for drinking, waters for fighting?
Waters for fighting, yeah. So we had a very public discussion about it. We tabled the resolution for now. May or may not come back. We'll have to see, what the Office of State Engineer and PVACD come together with. But we know that people are paying attention to what's going on there, and we want to be sure that anything that we do, we have records going back to the 1800s, here in Roswell. And a lot of times that record may have sticky notes on it or handwritten, something scrawled in the margin says, hey, you need to look at this water right or this. And so you start looking at your file and you say, wait a minute, I've got to go over here and grab this file and pull something out of it and put it down. Oh, well, now that says I got to go here. And you might have 6 files coming together.
Just for one thing.
And they did encourage everyone who has a water right in the Roswell Artesian Basin, which is the most complex basin in the state and maybe in the U.S. It's a very complex
it's a rival for that
thing,
huh?
and it's been going on for a long time. The record keeping and the legal ramifications of the water rights are very important. They encourage everyone that has a water right to go to the state engineer's office and make sure you get copies of everything pertaining to yours in case you ever need it. Then you'll have a copy.
Gotcha.
So, but anyway, that took quite a while because that's a very in-depth conversation. They addressed it well. Pecos Valley Artesian Conservancy District addressed it well. Our commissioners are very well versed on it. They had some good back and forth conversation, and we'll see where that goes in the future. So,
okay, very good.
But that took a while.
But more to come on that one, obviously. Yeah. So, but at least everyone's kind of on the page. Is like, hey, maybe we should think about having a backup for this in case, God forbid, something destroys our one set right now.
Right.
So.
And another thing that we did yesterday, of course, Chaves County is very in tune with endangered species and the overreach often of the federal government pertaining to endangered species and conservation.
That's a constant battle here.
It is a constant battle here. And again, I think it goes back to the point that in the West, there are a lot of public lands. In the East, there are a lot of private lands, and they don't understand the problems that they're laying on us whenever they start setting lands aside or reaching beyond their federal lands to restrict what you can do on your private lands.
It just meets an end game on a piece of paper for them, and so that's all. They don't see the impact that has in the actual physical world here. So
we're a member of the Arizona New Mexico Coalition of Counties, and our purpose in being in that coalition is to be on top of what's going on with any federal initiatives and the things that they do to us. So we decided to join the Arizona New Mexico Coalition of Counties in the preparation of an amicus brief about the Mexican wolf 10J rule.
Okay.
So an amicus brief is you're a friend of the court, and basically we're sending you this just to make sure that you understand there's a bunch of us that feel this way. We're not suing anybody. We're just letting you know the facts. And so we've decided to join that effort on the Mexican wolf and the 10J rule. What that is, 10J rule allows the rules to be circumvented. So a 10J rule says that you can have an experimental, non-essential population of, in this case, wolves. And they don't have to follow the same rules for those wolves as they do with the ones that are, genetically pure and placed in certain places. And
it's called a loophole.
it is absolutely a loophole. And what's funny about it is Fish and Wildlife, in a lot of times, they don't like it either because they can't shove certain things down your throat. But now, in this particular instance, they're wanting to use it, and they want to expand the wolf range instead of putting the wolves in their historic range and in the numbers that they've already negotiated and stuff. Now they would like the wolves to be north of I-40. They would like the wolves to be in Texas. They'd like the wolves to be in Arizona, in California.
Yeah, we'll see how the people are warmed up to that reception.
And the problem is they don't have to follow the same rules. Well, these aren't officially endangered wolves. They're an experimental, non-essential population. And so we can maneuver through and find these gray areas and loopholes, like you say, to allow us to do things that are well beyond what we're allowed to do by law. And those are exactly the kind of fights that Chaves County fights every day with government entities.
This is why
that are
lawyers make a
overreaching.
whole lot of money, because of that right there. Semantics and language and laws and things.
And we understand the Mexican wolf, at least this week, isn't going to be located in Chaves County. But, you know, we have a unified approach here. We've got their back, they've got ours. When it turns into something on the lizard, for instance, they're going to do the same thing for us.
It's that support network.
Yeah, it's a support network that we're all on the same page of music, and we're all singing the same song, and we want you to hear us, you know.
And it does come with a lot of strength.
We're going to sing it loud and sing it proud.
Well, and that's just it. Without this, then they run roughshod over this.
Right.
And,
you know, if it's one small group here, one small group there, it's no problem. We push them into the ditch and move on.
Yeah, one yelling voice in the night they don't care about. It's when they got 500 of them. And
another one of the fights that we're in right now is with the U.S. Forest Service has a plan to potentially make 203,000, as much as 203,000 acres of forest land in Eddy County, Otero County, Chaves County, and Lincoln County into wilderness area. And when they do that, you know, there's currently grazing, mineral exploration, you know, lots of things on those lands. But when they make a stroke of the pen and turn that into a wilderness area, and wilderness areas aren't good for hunting or fishing either, because you can't do anything on those areas.
You can't touch them. You can't. They just gotta.
And with minimal amounts, you know, there are small things that you can do there, but it's certainly not wide open space that you can do kind of what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to go do yoga and watch the checker spot butterfly fly by you, you can do that on public lands. But if it's a wilderness area, you may not be able to do that.
Yeah, you can't even do that.
And you certainly can't graze your cows. You can't do these things that we've coexist with the federal government on.
And by the way, we've seen how other areas have been made wilderness areas and saw that it had a negative impact on the ecosystem, not a positive impact. So,
and then I told you I was going to try to get to this other.
Yeah, we got about 3-4 minutes here if we got time.
Quickly, we also approved an ITB invitation to bid for an asphalt distributor. The road department's been needing a new distributor, and we came up with one, so we got that.
Okay.
So Wednesday, I went to Clovis and sat on a Farm Bill roundtable.
Okay.
And I mentioned that at the beginning of the
Senator
Ben Ray Lujan was there, and essentially representing Chaves County and the Pecos Valley. I told him, you know, there's certainly a lot more agriculturalists here that understand the issues better than I do, but there were groups of people from every industry having to do with agriculture, and I was the only county manager, so I felt a little out of place. I told them I've got a couple acres of hay and a couple of cows, but other than that, you know, and that was actually an exaggeration. So,
but I got a whole county government to run, so there's that.
I said, you know, certainly Chaves County agrees that anything we can do to help agriculturalists increase production, reduce regulations and red tape that prevent them from doing their jobs. And certainly anything we can do for our local dairies that are quickly becoming a thing of the past in Chaves County. Those are things that we're very concerned about. Crop insurance, you know, those kind of things. But what Chaves County, I said, what I'm bringing to the table today is Chaves County government is very interested in what you intend to do with the Title II provisions within the Farm Bill. Because we do not want to see the Farm Bill become a political football talking about climate change. The Farm Bill is there to discuss farm problems and to come up with solutions for farm. And there's at least in some of the initial drafts, there's a lot of climate change propaganda in there, which we don't believe that's the right place for.
Correct.
We believe that the land should be, as I've said before, used for the production of food, fiber, and minerals, you know, and those are the kind of things that agriculture does. And we certainly are fans of the government having programs like CRP, the EQUIP program. Conservation easements are fine, but not in perpetuity. And that seems to be the big push now. They're doing a lot of the 30 by 30 land grab stuff. Executive Order 14,008 doesn't have any power of law, doesn't have any money behind it, but they're funneling monies from the CARES Act, Rescue Act, now the Farm Bill, into doing things like conservation easements in perpetuity. So if a farmer decides, well, that old spot over there by the river, I don't use a whole lot, so the federal government's offering me a huge amount of money for it, So I'm more than happy to lease that to him. It's still my land, but you can't use it for anything. So is it really your land, or is it a asset anymore, or is it a liability?
Yeah.
And we believe in programs that like 10-year program. A farmer can try it out. They want to offer him that much money. Great. I'm going to try that out and I'm going to see how it works. And then I find out, oh, you put so many restrictions on me that now I can't even farm adjacent to it. But they don't find that out when they do it in perpetuity. And this has happened many times. They no longer have the chance to change it. And so now they've basically sold the whole farm for the price of this little strip of land through the middle. Said, make them 10-year periods. And there are lots of them that are in 10-year periods, conservation easements, CRP plans, that are a 10-year period. Try it out. If it works for your farm, re-enroll, do it again. But your grandkids aren't locked into something. And as the regulations build up, which they do, if it's in perpetuity, when you sign up, it may not be that big of a deal, but they continue to add things on. Next thing you know, there's buffer zones and everything else. We said that shouldn't be a part of the Farm Bill. Equip programs, we found this out through the Forest Service, when they turn lands into wilderness areas and an agriculturalist has accepted money from the Equip program, they have to pay those monies back if they turn that into a wilderness. So here they built all the infrastructure, but now because they can no longer graze their cattle on it, they have to pay the federal government back. So those are the kind of things that we spoke up about. And I know we're out of time, so I'm going to hush, but that's a good topic for any time you want to visit. We'll
maybe
talk
we can
more
devote
about
maybe a different time to come in and just kind of talk on some of this stuff, because and that's where the problems lie in many of our laws and things, is what they tack on and what what's hidden in the between the lines here. And this is what we're talking
I was
about.
very happy to find out that Senator Lujan, as soon as the 30 by 30 was mentioned, he said that he had actually had conversations with the administration that he felt parts of that are wrong. He made the comment that this is a Western initiative because all the lands are in the West, which is one of the main things that we're making clear. He apparently is very aware of that. And maybe that'll make a big difference for us, because the people back east, there's so many that are in Congress that are making these rules that affect us in the West. And we've just got to make sure that we're heard.
Well, it's nice when our senators put on their New Mexico hat instead of their federal government hat. So it's kind of nice. So very good. Well, of course, if you missed any part, you can go back and check it out at the county's website here. And don't forget, they meet normally the third Thursday of the month at 9 a.m. at the county commission.
And we will meet the third Thursday of the month next month.
Yes.
We do have the event going on November the 9th on the courthouse lawn. I want to be sure invite people. And if you see Dick Smith, give him a pat on the back. Tell him good job.
Absolutely. Well, good deal. Well, thank you, sir. We'll see you here next time. All right.
Great. Thank you.
All right. 8:57. Quick break before news.